Welcome to Spinning Back Clique, where each week here at MMA Junkie, we take a spin through the biggest stories in MMA. And on today's episode, we have a new champion in the UFC. 3 letters, JDM. In the women's flyweight division, the champ holds it down. That's 8 title defenses for the great Valentina Shevchenko. And 2 Brazilian greats have their moments at the Bell Center in Montreal. We'll talk about it. Hello, everyone. Gorgeous George here on the con, and look at the distinguished panel we have for you today. Goes over in Las Vegas. He's my co-host on the MMA Junkie Radio podcast. Danny Segura down in Miami. He hosts Hablemos MMA. Mike Bond up in Toronto. He hosts The Bonfire. Check out their work when you have some time. Everyone doing quality work here at MMA Junkie, but we gather every week for MMA for Spinning Back Clique. Goes is also going to double up here on the 1s and 2s, so cut him some slack, if it's a little wobbly early on, but we believe in him. Now, let's get to the hot topics. The topic that I want to discuss, obviously, leading things off, the new champ in the welterweight division, Jack Della Maddalena, defeats Belal Muhammad. It was Belal Muhammad's first title defense, and it didn't go as planned for him. Congrats to the Aussie. Oi, oi, oi. Let's react. Mike Bond was there. I'm going to lead things off with him. Mike, what are your thoughts on how that unfolded? Did you think it could go that way?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if Jack was going to win, that's what he needed to do. He needed to be sharp on the takedown defense. He needed to really work well from inside, the clinch and dirty boxing range. I think that's where he found some of his best success as well. So, yeah, this was a very, very near perfect performance from Jack. Can kind of get into the Belal side, maybe what he didn't do as far as expectations there, but I want to focus on Jack and giving him his praise because he definitely deserved it, man. And you look at the scorecards, the 5th round really ultimately did decide that fight, right? 2 judges had it 2-2 going into the 5th. Another one had it 3-1. But if Belal Muhammad pulled out that 5th round, we'd be talking about him as the winner by split decision here. So Jack dug deep. He had some of his best moments of the fight in that 5th round. And here we are, a new champion. 18 straight wins for Jack. He's really rose to the occasion. It's incredible.
And I know on Fight Week, you've been around enough of these to know that people are throwing smoke screens here, trying to not tip you off over here or whatever. But were people really believing that Belal was going to honestly just throw hands and get away from being the mauler that he is and what he did to Leon Edwards? That was a complete different Belal.
Yeah, I mean, I think some people thought he might stick with it for a degree, and he did, but I thought he would maybe try to lean on some grappling a lot more than he did, especially as the fight wore on. Again, you got to give credit to Jack for setting his pace and denying that type of stuff. But yeah, if you just go look and compare, say, the Leon Edwards fight to this one, it did not seem like the same guy. I mean, Belal did have a very, very serious foot infection, and according to him, almost could have had the whole foot amputated. So how does that change, how he's able to explode off that foot, all these different things, not trying to make excuses for the guy, but these are things you wonder. And, all these fighters get older and they deteriorate. So this is kind of the natural order of things, especially when you deal with injuries. But if you went in there being this is the most winning game plan for Belal Muhammad, go execute it. This was not that.
Danny, like Mike said, it was 2-2 going into round 5, and you would think experience, fight IQ, you still keep leaning towards the Belal Muhammad side. What was your reaction to the fight? And, maybe did we all just undercut Jack Della Maddalena because homeboy rose to the occasion when needed and put a stamp on it at the end of round 5 too?
Yeah, I saw it a little bit differently than I think most people. I did not agree with 2 of the judges that scored that fight. I agreed with 1 of the judges that scored that fight. I had it 4-1 Jack. I thought the only round that Belal won was the 4th, I believe. And honestly, I saw a pretty dominant fight from Jack's part. Belal Muhammad was competitive in the sense that he was always there and always looking to fight and stuff like that. But for the most part, the person in control and dictating the terms and landing the better shots was Jack by a mile, at least from my viewpoint. So I thought it wasn't as competitive as other people saw it. And that was a huge surprise for me. I thought Belal was a lock. If there was a lock on this card, I thought it was him. I just watching him against Leon Edwards, I thought that there would be a similar game plan. And I don't know what I'm more surprised about, that Jack won or that Belal barely attempted any wrestling and barely used his grappling, which is obviously what got him to the dance. Like, he's developed his hands over the last few years, but what got him to the championship title was his wrestling. That's what has set him apart from the division, at least on his campaign to the title. So I do wonder how healthy he is. As Mike mentioned, that foot injury could be very serious. He's also older. But I don't think we saw Belal Muhammad, at least the version that we saw against Leon Edwards, it wasn't present that night. Will that version come back? I don't know. But I don't want to make excuses for the guy, but like, I don't think Jack fought 100% Belal Muhammad, and that was clearly shown by the type of fight that he fought. And I don't think Belal, someone that's been hated a ton in this community, I don't think he'd be one to cave into the critics and be like, okay, now I'm just going to strike and put on an exciting fight. No, he's always stuck to his guns no matter what people say. So, yeah, big surprise. And you know, I think that speaks on how unpredictable this sport is.
Interesting. All right. Goes, your thoughts on this? I believe this is the second major UFC title in 2025, switching hands up in Montreal.
Yeah, I thought it was a great scrap, a very, very interesting tactical fight. But, you know, like the guys alluded to, I don't think we all expected it to see that fight kind of play out the way it did. The game plan for Belal Muhammad, I feel like maybe he was battling a couple things outside of the fight, you know, a couple factors when it comes to being champion and the things people say, and I'm going to stand, I'm not going to wrestle, all that stuff. Even, you know, the Kamaru Usman stuff, it just seemed like he was a little distracted. But I don't want to take away from JDM, because even if a 100% Belal Muhammad came in, who's to say JDM couldn't still do the things he was doing? But one thing that I think we can all agree on is, as the fight kept going, JDM was gaining a lot of confidence. And I think that came from Belal just not really implementing the game plan that he normally does. He left too many openings, I think. So definitely, I think on this card, there are going to be fighters that when they go back and watch their performance, they're going to be really frustrated. Belal Muhammad might be one of the most frustrated, because I feel like, despite, like, even Danny said 4-1, and I can actually see that. I know what he's talking about. It was confusing when you're watching it. There were rounds that were close, but there were rounds where you just kind of felt like JDM did enough to win the round. I think he's going to go back and see that and go, man, I probably could have, even with a bad performance, slipped in and taken something. But JDM, what's really interesting about him was not only him coming in and getting the victory and kind of showing us that he has what it takes to get past Belal, he also kind of sent a message to everyone else, where now everybody that's in a row after Belal Muhammad, you feel like it's not like whoever gets the title shot next is just going to take that belt from JDM. Like, their eyes are open and they see this dude is tough.
Man, you guys have maybe convinced me here that maybe it was something physical, because I thought Belal was really strong up here. And then being around the GSP aura, right, of, I'm going to just call it Montreal, because that's what I've always called it. Being there and knowing, okay, if I want to get there, I got to be smart like this guy was. And yet he just chose not to go to his strength. And every time it looked like he was making a move, Jack Della Maddalena came right back over the top. And that's why I praise Jack Della Maddalena, because that is some championship grit that he had. I looked at it like this, guys. Picture a jaguar. Like, think of the Amazon, a jaguar and a crocodile, right? Belal's the crocodile. All right, I'll fight you on the shore if you want. Crocodiles attack on the shore. But if he pulls you and drags you into the water, now you got to deal with the whole I can't breathe. And this guy can swim a lot better than me. And I thought Jack Della Maddalena was, you know, the jaguar. Okay, I occasionally go in there on Saturday to take my baths, and then I come out. I like hanging out over here. And he just could not drag him into the waters and stifle him and drown him or whatever.
He couldn't do anything, really. I mean, he took him down. He did take him down 3 times, and I'm looking here at the stats. Like, he had 3 minutes and 21 seconds of control time, and there was no really damage inflicted, no like submission attempts or anything. So I know it was later in the fight. I'm sure Belal was tired. His lip was split in half. He was beat up and bloody and bleeding and all that stuff. But it was like, he did have moments where he got him in the positions where I'm sure it was like dream come true, and he couldn't do anything with it. So again, let's not slant this conversation too much towards what Belal didn't do, and more, you know, give Jack his credit for what he did do.
No doubt. He rose to the occasion. Congratulations to him. I don't think Belal's done, but until we know more from him, from his side, which he didn't give any excuses going in. It sounded like he was 100% going in. So we have to take him at that.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh. All right. So guys, now the question is, let's unpack this. Jack Della Maddalena has a lot of killers chasing him in the welterweight division. He was just a killer chasing Belal. But the whole talk around the town was Islam Makhachev, Ilia Topuria, the future there all hinges on this fight. Mike, you are as close to all this as anyone. Tell us now, what do you think is the more likely scenario? Will Makhachev move up? And I know he's already starting tweeting all this, knowing full well that, yeah, you've cleared out the division, but we got a new champ over here with a lot of quality number ones.
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, this does happen sometimes, right? Like there is good guys in this division who deserve the title shot, no question. Shavkat, Sean Brady, Buckley if he beats Usman. The list goes on and on. There's a lot of very strong names in this weight class right now. But when you have the number one pound for pound fighter in the world who has done what Islam Makhachev has done, they've offered him this opportunity to move up before at UFC 300 against Leon Edwards. It couldn't work out for him because of Ramadan. So like this is something that's been kind of in the orbit for a long time now. And, the Belal Muhammad relationship, friendship, whatever you want to call it, was obviously a massive roadblock to this. But now that's out of the way. It seems like this is what we're going to get. I mean, Jack seems to want it. Islam wants it. We saw that little clip of Dana White and Hunter Campbell speaking to Jack backstage after the fight. And he's like, is this happening in Perth? When's it going to be? So, yeah, I think I would be surprised if this was not the next fight. And it seems like at least the other guys acknowledge it, right? Like even Ian Gary, who you can have your opinions on whether he actually even is qualified to get that next shot. He says we all need to take the back seat to Islam. And I think most of these other guys would agree as it goes on. And then, they can fight, and whoever wins between Jack and Islam will, I think, have a very, very clear number one contender who deserves that shot above all.
How does this impact, Mike, June 28th? There's a lot of people wanting to buy airline tickets, hotel reservations, and obviously T-Mobile. They need to purchase their stuff for what's supposed to be the biggest week of the year. What's left behind now?
Well, I hope we get something in the next 48 hours here, but yeah, I mean, you heard me ask Dana White at the press conference, right? Pre-fight, if like this fight's going to determine what happens in International Fight Week. Ilia Topuria said it. If Belal wins, he's going to be fighting Islam. If Jack wins, he'll be fighting probably Charles Oliveira. For, I think the biggest question remaining at this point is it going to be for a vacant belt or an interim belt? Because Ilia has said, I'm only fighting for the undisputed title. That's what the UFC promised me. Islam came out and said, I'm not vacating the belt. So who was told what? What is the ultimate truth going to be? I personally think it would be ridiculous to strip Islam or force him to vacate. The guy has 5 title defenses, or 4, the longest in this division's history. It is a completely different situation than Ilia Topuria. Moving on from the featherweight belt after one defense. And it seems like Islam is still wanting to come back and fight at lightweight. Like he wants the 2 belt over his shoulder thing. Like I think that's what he wants, even if it's for one night, even if he says, I'm not staying at welterweight, I'm going to go back down and deal with these guys. I think that's like what his dream in his mind is, to have that vision we've seen Connor and Amanda Nunes and Daniel Cormier have. He wants that moment. So I'm interested to see, more so than all, what's going to happen with that part of the decision.
You like what you're hearing, Danny? Should Jack Della Maddalena accept Islam Makhachev as his first opponent? It almost gives me it reminds me of obviously Islam doing that to Volk, but then you hear the backlash. Oh, you've defended twice against the featherweight, and all this stuff, and he wasn't getting his praise either.
Yeah, no, I don't think there'll be much backlash in terms of like, oh, you're not fighting a top contender. Like it's Islam Makhachev. He's the number one pound for pound guy, and most dominant UFC lightweight champion we've ever seen. So no, I don't think there'll be much backlash, and that's easily the biggest fight out there for Jack. Yeah, I know a fight with Ian Gary would be nice. Maybe Kamaru Usman if he were to be Buckley as well, but Islam Makhachev something else. And I think not only would it be big in terms of views and all that, but also just legacy. If Jack were to beat him, and I think watching him go against Belal, I mean, it gives us some hope that maybe he can, for those that support Jack. I mean, you talk about in just 2 fights, like just being like, okay, a fun contender, into like, already being a serious guy in the history books. So yeah, huge fight, and I think this is the move. This is the move. You know, I'm not a huge supporter of champion versus champion fights, but I think in this scenario it does make sense, and I'm excited to see it. Hopefully it does go down, and it looks like it's going to happen. All parties are in favor. Jack is in favor. UFC wants to make it happen. Islam wants to go up. So yeah, I'd be surprised if we don't see it.
Okay, now turning back to the 28th, though, what happens there? You think Topuria is just going to have to bite the bullet and fight for an interim while Makhachev does this thing at welterweight? Because Makhachev's saying, I don't want to lose my title while I chase this one.
Yeah, that's also going to be interesting, and I think it was a big mistake for Ilia Topuria to drop the featherweight belt without having like a contract signed, like I'm going to be the next guy. If that's the case, just ask for an interim or just play the long game, you know, something. But just to like walk away from a UFC title without getting a guarantee of another championship fight, and we know that's how these guys usually make their bulk of their money through the UFC and their championship days. I mean, he's going to have to hope that maybe there's an interim title implemented here so that he's still fighting for a belt. And even then, I don't know if he'll still get like pay-per-view points and will get like a pay bump because he's fighting for the belt. But yeah, man, just like a big Ilya has handled his career very well in terms of like outside of the cage, what steps to take and whatnot, how to carry his career. But I think this was a big miss from his team. I think it makes sense for him to fight Oliveira for the interim or Gagey, but yeah, we'll see. It certainly, I don't think it was a very smart move for him to leave the belt that easily without any guarantees.
He will not be happy if he has to fight for an interim bout. And
I mean,
somebody's
imagine a number one contender. How about that? Not even an interim belt.
Yeah,
I feel like it's got to be an interim at minimum because they just need a title on that poster for International Fight Week. So I'd be shocked if it didn't have a belt attached unless they have some other main event in store and that ends up being the co-main. But it would feel like a misuse of Ilia Topuria given what he's just done to not put him in the headliner of that card. So my expectation is he fights one of those lightweights. It seems like Charles is the front runner. Rightfully so, in my opinion. And, you know, I don't think that's a gimme for Ilya by any stretch of the imagination either.
So Gaethje kind of got screwed too, because wasn't he kind of like the unofficial leading candidate for Islam because Islam didn't want to do someone coming up from featherweight again. He didn't want to do a rematch again, and Sarukian's in the doghouse. So it seems like
more so just because he was the fresh opponent, right? Like he's the guy that Islam hadn't fought. He kind of wanted that name. It made sense coming off the win, but I think if you're putting two other guys in there and doing like kind of a new thing, it's got to be there. And, you know, Charles Oliveira had his rematch with Islam. He had to pull out if he beats Ilia Topuria. Absolutely no doubt that he would deserve it then.
But isn't that what we were talking about last week where we were saying, look, the card's not that sexy up and down, but the ramifications of what it can do and what we're going to be talking about today was pretty massive across the board everywhere.
Because if Belal holds serve, he'd probably get Gary next if Shafkat's not ready, because Buckley's not, he wouldn't have enough time to shine against Kamaru should he win. If they wanted to start moving things forward, you know, oh my God, this is crazy. My head wants to explode. But all I'm getting right now is Topuria done messed up. And yes, we need a headline bout. So I guess Tuesday's matchmaker meeting day. I'm sure they'll figure it out. There ain't no last minute John Jones, Tom Masvidal here in this equation. All right. Well, we have every week we do this here, Spinning Back Clique Live. Give us a like right now, too, and chime in with your own comments and what would you do if you're a matchmaker. I read all the comments at the end of the show, so tell me what you think there, if you agree with us, and how you would handle this. But this whole thing is a mess. What's next for Belal Muhammad, guys? Is the Kamaru Usman fight a slam dunk? He still has Buckley ahead of him. I saw Mike's piece on it, so let me go back to Goes, is there another fight here, or is that one just too hot of a ticket to get past it? Should you know the fight coming up impact it in another way?
I mean, look at the division. There's tons of fights, but this is the one we want to see, right? Like, I mean, all the talk that's been going on, and honestly, it doesn't matter if Kamaru wins, loses. You just want to see it, and we've had too many of these situations where fights that we want to see are just not happening. So, one thing that people bring up with Belal Muhammad is maybe sometimes it's a little bit hard to sell to people. Well, here you go, silver platter, a lot of heat, put those two in the cage, we will all watch.
You agree, Danny?
Yeah, I think that's a good fight, win or lose. But I also like to throw out there a fight with Colby Covington. I think Colby's looking for one of the bigger names. Getting a former champion is not bad. And I think that'd be a fun fight too. Those two have history. They've gone back and forth with each other. Belal has made it pretty clear, like at least on his rise to the title, like I want to beat Colby Covington's ass, regardless of whether that gets me closer to the belt or not. So I think that'd be a fun rivalry there. So I think you can't lose with either of those two fights. I think those two make sense.
Valentina Shevchenko retained her title against Manon Fiorot. They went to 25 minutes. She got the decision. Fun fight. I honestly thought at times it could get boring because Valentina is a counter striker and Manon moves around so well, avoids the damage. But man, she got her nose busted open pretty early on. And although she fought back, and I thought won rounds 2 and 3, in the end, the champ just had too much. Mike, your thoughts on this fight? A lot of sharps told me, Mike, going in, Fiorot is the play. Lots of units on her. Was that the feeling in Montreal as well, that we were going to get of the two champs? This was the one that was going to be the new crown, the newly crowned?
Yeah, I think when you frame it like that, if people were picking a title change in one of these two, it seemed like there was more juice behind Fiorot. But I personally thought Valentina was going to win. I thought the experience was going to come through, that a lot of the things that made the difference for her in this fight was going to be it. I think calling it a fun fight is a little generous, George, but to each their own. I did not have too much fun watching that from cage side, but Valentina showed a lot of heart in her experience, because there was some moments there where it was like, oh, is this just going to be like a slightly diminished version of what we saw in her prime, and that could be enough for her to fall off, because these women coming up have been studying her for years and years now at this point. So for her to be able to keep doing this is pretty impressive, just in terms of the results. And yeah, she's still got some interesting fights coming up for her. I mean, to regain the belt and then start another reign is incredibly difficult, and only the greatest fighters in the sport's history have been able to accomplish that. So she's solidified her legacy even further with this win. And we'll see if it's Zhang Weili next or if it's Natalia Silva.
I think why I found it so compelling was I thought it was 2-2 going into round 5, and so that just brought me back to the edge of my seat. All right, Goes, your thoughts here on the fellow Peruvian, man. Incredible what she's done here. She regained the title after all that adversity, losing it, the draw, the same opponent 3 times, and here she is stacking up an 8th title defense.
Yeah, Pope's on fire, huh? Peruvians are killing it.
Oh.
I think, look, it was kind of weird, man, because it wasn't like the most exciting fight, but I think what was on the line and the way the rounds were being scored did kind of keep you tuned in. I thought Valentina had a pretty decent attack, a pretty decent strategy. That nose, though, early on, for anybody who's ever gone through that and the situations you get put in because of the blood going down your throat and all that, that was rough. So had that not happened, I honestly think Manon probably would have had a little bit of a better performance. But if you look at her record and you look what she's been through, like, honestly, she's done a lot so far. But it kind of takes me back to Tatiana Suarez, where really when you look at the experience, it's not a whole lot, right? And so I think this is a fight where Valentina was able to win using her experience, being in the championship rounds before, knowing what it takes. It's just, when you talk about Valentina Shevchenko and where she's at in women's MMA, the things that she's done, that was experienced that night. And I'm glad that she got it done, man, because it really does open the doors for a lot of things.
Danny, react to the fight and then slide into this. Can she ever get to the status of maybe GOAT? What would it take?
Yeah. I thought it was completely insane that Fiorot was a favorite entering this fight. And I was telling Farah Hanoun on the preview show that we do before the event, like I kind of checked myself, like, wait, am I missing something? Did I miss a fight of hers? Did I not look things clearly? And I went back and watched the footage, and I was still convinced that Valentina was far the better fighter. And this whole thing about the size, well, the lady fought Amanda Nunes twice, and you can make an argument that she, won both fights, right? And fought very big fighters at 135 pounds. So for me, Valentina was a lock on this card. So I was surprised she was being underestimated. But anyways, the fight played out, unlike the main event. The fight played out exactly like I thought it would here in the co-main event. And yeah, props to Valentina. Like, what she's doing is insane. I feel like if she'd be a little bit more vocal and a little bit more bold with her comments and not so much just, hey, I'm a fighter, I'll fight anybody. That conversation about being the GOAT would really have a little bit more strength. But people forget, go look at her record. What she's been able to do is incredible. And if Amanda Nunes is going to come back and not stick around that long, and Valentina doesn't seem like she's going to stop anytime soon, I don't rule it out. I do think that people have locked Amanda Nunes in this place of, being the women's MMA GOAT, rightfully so. And it's untouchable, like it's undebatable, like, that there will be nothing that will ever change that. It's like the sun. But I don't think that's the case. I think Valentina has a chance here at adding up a few title defenses, especially if she were to be Zhang Weili, the champion from a different division. I think she has a chance to make the conversation interesting and maybe be regarded as the GOAT at some point.
You're lucky we only have a 1 hour show, because I'd actually to expand on the sun. What you meant by that? That sounded interesting to me, though. What's
sun
next
is forever, George.
The sun is always going to be there, my friend. Always.
What about the eclipse?
It's still there. I mean, you just got to like a moon over it, right?
The eclipse was her loss to Alexa Grasso, George. Keep up.
There you go.
Shevchenko, Mike, what do we do with her next, man? She's got options. We got Blanchfield and Barber fighting very soon. We got Natalia Silva and Jasmine Jasdovicius creeping up as well.
Thinking hat here,
but
then
Zhang
Weili, fan who hooked this one up.
Zhang Weili's thinking, what about me? I want to do what old Islam's thinking about too. Although Verna Jandarova's got a proper cases there as well.
Yeah. I think the Zhang Weili fight is probably overdue at this point. Like, I'm sorry, women's MMA needs something like this. The past 9 women's UFC title fights, I believe, have gone to decision. I think the last finish we got in a women's title fight was Grasso finishing Shevchenko in fight 1. So, like, give me something interesting on the women's MMA side, please. Weili wants it bad. I think she's earned kind of her place as well. And, Shevchenko certainly doesn't get all the glory and the perks of that champ versus champ fight. She's the one defending, but I think that would be a big legacy win for her as well. I would love to see the Natalia Silva fight too. I think that needs to happen, but I think there's at least the chance for something a little more fascinating with the Zhang Weili fight. Natalia Silva feels like another 5-round stand on the outside, trade shots, try to counter each other, et cetera, et cetera. There could be some good moments, but like that doesn't make me jump out of my seat here. So let's do it. Zhang Weili versus
Shevchenko. You live, I think, in the same city as Jasmine J. You don't want to throw her a bone? She didn't go out there wanting to play patty cake, man. She's smashing.
It's true. Love Jasmine. She's been killing it. And this is going to sound mean. I don't know what a win over Jessica Andrade in 2025 is even worth, man. Like, she feels very much these days like she's just showing up for the paycheck. The results kind of indicate it. The losses are getting quicker, less resistance in there. So, like, it's a great win putting a former UFC champion on your resume. Like, we know what Andrade has done in her career, but I'd like to see her fight maybe the winner of Macy Barber and Blanchfield later this month, like someone like that to just kind of put herself over the hump. Or maybe she fights Natalia in a number 1 contender fight. Well, they do the Zhang Weili fight, but it feels like she just needs one more.
Danny, you feeling, Mike? You like the super fight idea?
Yeah, it's got to be it. Women's MMA in recent years has sucked. I mean, it's just at one point it was buzzing, headlining pay-per-views. It was part of the big talk in MMA. And now it just kind of feels like, a secondary thing. And I think these type of super fights, considering that both these ladies are phenomenal talents, this would revive the sport. Plus, then you're supposed to get, Juliana Peña versus Kayla Harrison pretty soon, and maybe Amanda Nunes comes back after that. I think if we can get into a nice little run here of some super fights, some big fights, I think we can turn this around and have some excitement back in women's MMA. So I think that's the move. And again, so sorry to Verna Jandiroa, who's clearly done more than enough to deserve a title shot. Natalia Silva has also done a lot, but I don't know. I think we need a big fight at this point, and that's the one that's available.
Unanimous goes. Do you agree?
Yes and no. Yeah, I kind of do agree with these guys. There are matchups that I would still be excited about, but it's about putting them paddles right on the heart and kind of rejuvenating what's kind of fallen off a little bit in women's MMA. You need something big. And I think the Pena Harrison fight, that's going to help. But something like this, I think, would really bring things back. I think it just kind of needed. I think everybody would understand it.
Real quick, it's a race. Whoever starts talking, go with it because we're a little short on time. What's next from Manon Bureau? I got an idea. Grasso and Guadalajara, but anybody?
Sure.
You like that, huh? All right.
I'm not a big fan of it.
Oh, come on. Why
Not
not?
a
You
big
got
fan
a
of it.
Mexican coming off a loss against a French woman coming off a loss.
So Alexa Grasso 100% needs to be on UFC Guadalajara. She's the face of Guadalajara MMA. But man, you gotta give her like maybe like an easier bout. You know, I would suggest Jessica Andrade. I think that'd be a fun fight of volume and.
Daddy's like, I heard those comments. Put her in there with Grasso.
She's got to get a win in Guadalajara. Come on, you give
wait, Jessica Andrade against
a
who?
little dicey
Against
Alexa Grasso.
Well, we're talking about Firo though. What's next for Firo?
Well, no, I know. I'm just saying I wouldn't like it to be.
I look at it as I laid it up and Mike reverse dunked it, and we're fist bumping, walking back. I did the same to Danny, and Danny looked and he threw it back out and started running a play. That's a slam dunk, Danny. Grasso and Firo, Guadalajara. Why are you so against it?
I don't know. Give me maybe the winner of.
He doesn't.
I even prefer the winner of like a Macy Barber or Macy Barber versus Aaron Blanchfield, the winner versus Grasso. I don't know.
There's still lots of people for Firo to fight. Maybe you do her and Jasmine.
Yeah.
Did you see that picture that Grasso posted? How lumped up she was from that fight? Like, she's got a lot of things to solve. I'm with Danny. I think you got to, especially at home.
She's got to get a win, give her. You got to throw her a layup, George.
Throw her a bone.
Yeah. By the way, can we address one comment here on the chat?
Sure. Yeah.
It is wait, let me see if I lost it here. I believe it's Carlos Esteves saying top right guy has a very aesthetically pleasing face. He is beautiful. Look at that goes.
Okay. I'm not gonna lie. We were trying to figure this out before the show started. Because I'm logged in through another StreamYard, I think there's like a filter or something because I don't look right.
This
is not what I look like in real life.
Look at that. You get full screen, Carlos, and everything.
Yeah.
Screenshot it.
Bank.
All right. Listen, let's get to the rest of UFC 315. Ayman Zahabi against Jose Aldo. How did you score it? Quick, a score and a reaction, Mike.
A score, I think 29-28. Jose Aldo was probably where I was leaning. I would have been okay with a draw with a 10-8 in round 3 if you really want to do it with those last like 2 minutes. But we were kind of talking about the show. Or before the show, you could, even make an argument for Aldo in round 3 with the knockdown, but I didn't see it that way. But I did think he won, and God, it's just it's sad to see. This is kind of how the downslide of Jose Aldo's career has been. This second return from retirement has not been enjoyable really for anyone.
Goes, how did you score it, and what are your thoughts here on that fight?
2-1 Aldo. But I wouldn't say it was like an absolute robbery, but I felt like it was clear. I felt like it was a very clear 2-1, and just the ramifications of what's happening because of it, that does kind of suck.
Danny, how about you? Your score?
I couldn't disagree more with Gorgeous Ghost. I mean, I thought it was a robbery. I thought it was easy, clearly 2-1 Jose Aldo, and I can even make the case that
that's what he said.
30-27.
Oh, okay.
Because that last round, who did the most damage? Bro, who was closer to getting finished? The only reason why Zahabi had success was because Aldo gassed and he was just tired. He was tired. He wasn't hurt. Zahabi was on his way out to no man's land against Jose Aldo there in that third round. And who landed the bigger shots and all that? Zahabi was a top control. Yeah, the elbows and stuff. But again, it was a lot of just, cardio surviving, not really damage, being hurt. Aldo wasn't close to getting out. He knew what he was doing. He went to his back and he was like, all right, I'm just going to sit off these 2 minutes. I won the first 2 rounds. I should get a decision here. And once again, he gets screwed. How many times does he find himself in this position? I feel like we often see it. And again, it was a fun fight. I'm glad that it was at least exciting. But Jose Aldo, and we'll get into it in a few seconds, likely retired or maybe not. And you're telling me that when he came back from retirement, we knew that we only had 3-4 fights max out of this legend, this beloved figure, and we chose to match him, or the UFC matchmakers chose to match him up against Mario Bautista, Jonathan Martinez, and Ayman Sahabi. You're really telling me those are the 3 best possible fights you can do to finish the career of a legendary figure like Jose Aldo? I think this result and the previous results as well kind of speak on how shitty the matchmaking has been around this guy. So, yeah, I mean, I couldn't disagree more with the decision. I thought it was a robbery. I thought he clearly won that fight. And call me crazy, but I think I scored at 29-28, but you could make a case that maybe even 30-27 or that round to 10-10.
Danny, he's already retired and come back, and then he left the door open in the octagon. Then he went on social media, left the door open again. If that group from Chile hadn't gotten busted, I think they'd be looking at maybe robbing Jose Aldo's residence because he keeps leaving the door open. But what do you think? Should he retire or what?
If the UFC are going to keep giving him these fights, like, why are you going to do this? Like, I don't think he needs the money. I think, I think he's, he lives in Brazil, which is, makes US dollar, USD. So I think he should be okay money wise. But like, and as a fan, like if these are the type of fights that they're going to match him up with, like, I'm good. Like, just retire, get fat, have fun in a beach in Brazil, enjoy Rio, and that's that. But yeah, I think he still has some fight left in him. I think there are still some fun fights left in him for him. But again, that's only if the UFC matchmaking is gonna try to play that, is gonna try to do things right. If not, dude, just stay retired. Fuck it.
Mike, what's next for Ayman Zahabi, who's on a nice little roll?
God, this is the first time I've thought about that. I don't know. Anyone in the top 10, I guess, at bantamweight. Let me look at the rankings. Yeah, Cheeto, he called him out. I'm fine with that. I mean, obviously, Cheeto's got a fight coming up against Mario Bautista of his own at UFC 316. The winner of that would be fine, I guess. Like, anyone out there, you could do like Montel Jackson, who's ranked right around him. Rob Font, any of these guys. I mean, I don't think anyone's beaten down the door to see him again after, that fight, but, he'll get matched up. He's won, 6 in a row now, and yeah, we'll see what he can do at 37.
Goes, we mentioned Grasso earlier when we were talking about Manon Fiorot, so we kind of already have positioned her as to what might be next. First, heal up, and then fight in Guadalajara. How about Natalia Silva? I thought quietly she was one of the stars of the night, smiling all week, dressed to the nines, and then go out there and beat a former champ. Your thoughts?
Dude, I thought it was an interesting performance. I think if they matched her up for a title shot, I think it would be fun. I don't think it's going to happen, though. She's going to have to wait a little bit, and she'll probably get matched up with somebody before then. Well, hopefully we don't have to wait till Tuesday, man, for the matchmaker meeting, because there just seems like a lot of things that they could have planned ahead of time. But I'm excited to see her again. I thought that was a pretty fun performance.
Yeah, and she didn't really, the gas tank didn't dwindle, and she was throwing a lot of kicks. I thought a lot of the women's fights go to a decision anyway, but I thought hers was one of the more fun ones because, like I say, the pace didn't seem to drop off as much. All right, guys, real quick, give me another highlight from this card. Let's put it to bed. Let's go back to Goes. Who do you want to give some shine to from UFC 315?
I thought Malat's performance was pretty good. Considering the little hype that was coming back and forth between these two guys to get the job done and have the crowd embrace him that way. And then for him to even kind of check everyone and put everyone in line, I thought was kind of cool. I thought overall it was a really good performance.
How about you, Danny Segura?
Jasmine Jasudavicius, she's a nice winning streak, and fighters like her are the reason why women's flyweight is the best division right now and why it's so exciting. So shouts out to her. I'm not saying she's going to be future champion. She's going to beat Valentina Shevchenko, but she's certainly a top dog in that weight class and has a little bit more to prove, but she's looking good, man. She's looking very good.
Dude, the way she picked up on Andrade, man, like she was just a little girl. Holy cow. Andrade was, bottom heavy or whatever. It doesn't look like she's easy to give a lift like that too. But Mike, how about you?
Marc-Andre Barrial, I'll give him a shout out. I mean, I don't think I've covered more of a singular fighter's fights in person than this guy. He just seems to be on every Canada card, and then when I cover events elsewhere, he seems to be on those cards too. So I feel like I'm always seeing this guy fight. A very up and down run, but that was a terrifying knockout of Bruno Silva, the first person to knock him out. And to do that on the final fight of your contract when you're coming off a 3-fight losing streak where you'd been finished in the first round yourself 3 times in a row. He badly needed a definitive victory to get a new contract. He checked all the boxes, got his bonuses, and thankfully we can sit here now and fully enjoy the victory now that we know Bruno Silva is okay.
Was that as loud as the arena got? Because it seemed pretty loud after that one, but obviously it hadn't filled in yet. But you told me you were there.
Yeah, it was up there. Jasmine and Mike was probably the pinnacle of the night in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, I just want to give some shine to Benoit Saint Denis. He had the 2-fight losing streak, and then they take away Joel Alvarez, which is a good way to get back, to being one of the top lightweights, right? And making another run, and then Joel Alvarez pulls out. Mauricio Rufy wanted some, but they decided to go with Prokalek, I think is his name, who look, shout out to him for going in there on 1 week's notice. But I thought Benoit Saint Denis looked really, really good. He's supposed to be a smashing if he's a minus 1800, so we can't get too far away from that. Obviously, he was going to be the better fighter anyway, but that's what the better fighter is supposed to do, is go in there and smash. And now I'm excited to see him probably fight in France again. Let's see if he gets his swag back. Folks, don't forget, after the fights, a lot of these fighters went in the back, spoke to the media. We didn't get Dana White because he didn't do it, but we did get at least one of the executives there who talked about all this, and it's available here on our channel. It's all for free. Subscribe to the channel, hit the like button. We still got another 20 minutes to go on the show, but lots of quality content here at MMA Junkie. We're getting close to 400,000 subscribers, so we would love for you to sign up as well. All right, guys, continuing on here. Other news in the sport of mixed martial arts. Look, there's a lot to cover here, but Vitor Belfort, there was an announcement. He is now in the Hall of Fame. He's in the Pioneer Wing. He started in the late 90s. Goes, your thoughts on the Phenom being in?
Oh, absolutely deserved to be in. I mean, he helped make the sport what it is today. And going back to that time when he first came in, if you heard a guy was Brazilian, you just figured BJJ, right? He's all about jiu-jitsu. This was the first guy to actually have striking in his game. And I did a piece about a year ago where I talked about, in boxing, we had the four kings, right? And he was kind of part of that era for the UFC, where you had Couture, Ortiz, and Chuck Liddell and himself, and they just kind of took turns beating on each other. Definitely deserves to be there.
Favorite moment?
Believe it or not, it's kind of personal. He came to our studio one time and maybe taught us a little bit of a lesson. We used to have these people that would come to the studio and ask for autographs, and they'd have all these pictures, right? And outside of the studio, some guy went up to him and said, "Can you sign these pictures?" And it was like 10 of them, but it was him getting knocked out by Anderson Silva. And we were thinking, dude, that's a bold move. And I think, George, you were the one that asked him, right? And he just said, look, it's part of the sport. It's part of history, and you have to be a professional. And it was just a different mindset he always had of thinking about things.
That dude was nuts. It's like, what do you want him to sign Anderson's foot? Well, it's right up in his grill or what? But yeah, Vitor took it like a champ. Danny, your thoughts on Belfort making it in a favorite moment, please?
Yeah, he definitely deserves to be there, a pioneer. And I would say that like 3-fight span of like TRT Vitor, certainly that's very tied to his career. But yeah, those 3 fights where he was on TRT and it was good to go in the UFC at the time, he just looked invincible. I am convinced that if the entire roster at the time would get on TRT, he'd be the best. I think like just him on that thing just absolutely enhances him like nobody else. And yeah, that was crazy. Knocking out Michael Bisping, knocking out Luke Rockhold, and knocking out Dan Henderson. Second round, first round, and then first round finish. All of them bonuses. It was a very exciting time in the sport. And yeah, a bit controversial, obviously, but still, you can't take that away from him. Solid victory, solid finishes.
Mike, quick reaction from you and a favorite moment.
Yeah, I'm just glad Danny kind of touched on what he said there at the end, because it is a complicated legacy for Vitor, and probably more than we have time to speak here for. He's the pioneer in more ways than one, the very early portion of the game. I mean, his knockout of Vanderlei Silva is one of the very early UFC highlights I remember seeing on like YouTube or whatever, that did get me into wanting to see more of this guy, see more of the sport, and takes you down a wormhole of pride and all these different things early on there, but also a pioneer of the TRT stuff and almost helping clean up the sport in a way too, because all that stuff led to USADA and drug testing in a more thorough way in the UFC. So it is very complex. I understand the people who think he does not belong here, and completely, I'm aware of that element of it, but if it's like baseball, right? If you can't include any of these guys, you're not going to have much of a Hall of Fame to work with, especially in the pioneer wings. So that is what it is in that regard. And yeah, most knockouts in the first round in UFC history. One of the most dangerous early round fighters the sport has ever seen. So that's
how many did he have?
I think he has 13.
Really? Wow.
Second, I think is 12. Anthony Rumble Johnson, RIP.
There you go.
I'm not saying I would want to see this, but I'm just saying if Vitor Belfort would be young like today, like if he were much younger, dude, BKFC, he would be the best BKFC fighter in history.
I mean,
just the best one-round fighter.
Andre Arlovsky just signed over there. There's still plenty of time for Vitor.
No.
I think and also must be noted, he did kind of get himself exiled from the combat sports community by the way he handled Vander Holyfield. I don't think people like that one bit.
Okay. I'll just say that Vitor represented something to me, man. When he beat up Tank Abbott, Scott Ferozzo, John Hess, this was a young GG back in the day when I'd be out clubbing and stuff, and you'd see them big bully bouncers that just would shove you out of the way, and there wasn't no camera phones back then, so you just had to take it, man. If they wanted to move you, remove you, whatever. And just, if it wasn't Hoist Gracie enough, it was a guy like Vitor Belfort proven, man, if you got some quick hands, you can put them big dudes down. Look up who John Hess was. This guy was a real jerk, man, in the sport. So before we got to Tank Abbott, who portrayed himself as a jerk, you were looking for some of these dudes to get ass whoopings, and Vitor handed them out, man. So, and look, he came through an era where in Brazil, steroids weren't illegal and they weren't frowned upon. And the TRT was with no limits. I have no problem. He's well-deserved. Congratulations to Vitor Belfort. Johnny Eblen and Dakota Ditcheva, two big stars for the PFL. I won't call them disgruntled or anything, but they are concerned. What's next? They got opponents coming up at a PFL Africa show in July. Not the biggest names, Costello Vanstinas, a collegiate wrestler, I believe, and a Hawaiian who's 9-1, Sumiko Inaba for Dakota Ditcheva. A reaction there, Danny? Your thoughts on PFL finally making moves? It took them half the year with two of their biggest names.
Yeah, I'm just glad these two got fights because they're obviously very good talents, and they should be using their primes to fight as much as they possibly can. So glad that the PFL got that squared out, but it is a little bit concerning. Like, just like this is supposed to be the number two. These are supposed to be like your biggest names in the promotion, and yet they're not able to find like very interesting challengers. I think less so in the Ditcheva and Sumiko Imiba. She's fought a lot for Bellator, so people might be a little bit more familiar with her. But yeah, I guess relieved that these got fights, but then after like a degree of concern, like, man, these are kind of like the best bouts you can put together for two of your best talents.
Two talents who I think would do well in the UFC, and arguably if both of them were on the card together, I think one of them could walk away with the belt. They are destroyers in their own senses, but yeah, that's the best we can offer there. I got to play a little bit of catch up here, so I'll just go to Goes. Reiner de Ritter, busy again, Goes. He fought in November for the first time, 3 times in 6 months, 3 wins, all finishes, and he's already got his next opponent. You got to love that from someone who wants to stay busy. They're rewarding him with the former champion Robert Whittaker at UFC Abu Dhabi. It's a fight night coming up in July. Is this the right matchup? Is he fighting too much more than he can chew, Goes, in terms of, is the body healing? That's weight cuts, and obviously those are training camps, and this guy's a killer.
That's what I'm wondering. I mean, that's a hell of a reward, right? With Robert Whittaker. To me, it seems like the UFC put this matchup together with two guys that I'm not sure they entirely know what to do with at this point, right? I feel like RDR, you turn the corner. Maybe you brought him in to put other people over, but it's obvious he deserves to be here. And he's very charismatic. I like the matchup. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And really, we're going to need Dan Tom to break that one down because that can go many ways.
Mm-hmm. Your thoughts on that one, Mike? Do you like it? You know what I'm talking about, though, right? Sometimes a guy just needs a break and they don't realize it because they're on such a roll. And obviously the UFC's not going to tell you because they need the bodies.
This is what he wanted. I mean, he said coming in, I couldn't get fights with one, like, make stuff happen for me. And they've very much obliged to that. He's been getting the step ups and I love this fight. This is the one I said they should make for RDR after that. I didn't feel the Strickland call out was, landed in terms of timing and all that stuff. I think Strickland is going to rematch Izzy next. So this is the next best thing, man. Look at the track record. You beat Robert Whittaker, you get a title shot. So I think that's what he's landing himself up for here.
Early prediction, Mike? Early lean?
I feel like Whitaker, I mean, you see him today. He's like talking on his podcast. He's like, I'm so freaking inspired by Volk and by Jack. Like, it's my turn to bring the belt back to Australia. This is the start of my last title run. So I will say Whitaker just because it seems like he's so motivated. But if he loses this one, I think maybe there'll be some career conversations about Whitaker and RDR. This would be a tough setback. But if he gets it, then who knows? I mean, he'll probably be studying all the DDP tape from that Whitaker fight and trying to be just as awkward.
Goes, I know you're playing Travis Hunter, man. You're a 2-sport star here with the producing and panels. But I got to go back to you. Get off that fence. Give me an early prediction, at least an early lean before Dan Tom starts unpacking the whole thing.
Early lean. You know, he's right. It is what RDR has been asking for. If you look at his record, I mean, he's been able to figure out a lot of puzzles. So I'm actually going to go with RDR on this one.
Danny, you agree?
I'm going to go with Whitaker, but I feel like Whitaker outside of a UFC championship fight, it was always a lock. Like, yeah, of course, Whitaker. But nowadays that's becoming, it's a little harder to just sort of throw out there. I'm still not, I'm still on the Whitaker side of things. I think he beats everyone but the champion at this point. So I'm going to go with him, but I wouldn't be shocked if RDR was able to pull something off.
I'm going to go with RDR. That's a big body. Go ahead, Mike.
No, I was gonna say, so if RDR goes out there and beats Whitaker's ass, what does everyone say about Bo Nickel then? Does he still suck, or is RDR just that good?
They'll probably still say he sucks, to be honest. I'm not saying it's fair. I'm just saying like that's what would happen.
And what does that mean about Paul Craig? Because he didn't do well against Bo Nickel. And I thought
we'll find out with his performance this weekend.
Former champs, man. I'm going to give him some love at the end here. But we do have one more bit of news story that we want to discuss. Mike, I'm going to stay with you. Alex Pereira put out a message on Twitter. Very strongly worded message, respectful, everything right. Things weren't going his way. May want to consider hanging him up or whatever. And then he put out on Instagram going, man, I got hacked. But a lot of people aren't buying it. I think DC is one of them. What are your thoughts, man, through all this? And was that, were people talking about it at the Fighter Hotel and all this? You were behind the scenes all week. What were your thoughts?
I mean, historically, when you get hacked, they're trying to sell a PlayStation on your account, maybe get you to buy into like a crypto coin or something like that. It's not usually very specific language about the status of your career and like relationships and management and stuff like that. So the hacker who did do that must know, the sport and the game very, very well and just be like, I'm just going to stir up Alex Pereira's life a little bit here. No, I do not think he was hacked. I think he put that out with some intent and probably got a phone call and maybe either got quickly appeased with what he wanted or a talking to. So I don't know the exact genesis. I mean, from some word you hear kind of around, and don't quote me on this or anything, it seems like they're trying to pin down a date for this rematch for the Ankalaev fight. And, maybe it sounded like they had come close to something. There was a shuffle made and he wasn't too thrilled with that. So that's kind of the best I could say about it at this moment. But yes, if you're saying, do I believe Alex Pereira was hacked? I'm going to give a no on that one.
I don't know. Would it be like Abu Dhabi maybe in October? Or is that too far away? They probably want something sooner, right?
I think he probably wants something sooner, but I think maybe the UFC wants that later.
Got it. All right. Continuing on here, we have more fights coming up this weekend. UFC Fight Night 256. Gilbert Burns versus Michael Morales. Back to that welterweight division. We got an undefeated 18-0 killer from Ecuador coming out of Tijuana, Mexico, against Gilbert Burns, who has put a lot of fighters over, but he hasn't made it easy. He doesn't just get stomped either. He's been in a lot of fights, including the Jack Della Maddalena fight. Danny, what's at stake here for both Burns and Morales?
I feel like both these guys are in very similar positions, but in opposite ends, if that makes sense. I think Gilbert Burns has one foot out the door in terms of his title contention days, and Michael Morales has one foot in the door in terms of title contention. And I think this fight will determine who gets through that door, who leaves and who gets in, right? Is Gilbert going to stay? Because if he clearly beats a young undefeated prospect like Michael Morales, I'm not saying future champion, but the dude's still among the best of the world. And if Michael Morales were to win here, well, I think, we know exactly where the career of Gilbert Burns is going, and we know exactly where the career of Michael Morales is going. So a lot at stake here. I think it's proven, like, does he still got it, or is Michael Morales is the real deal? So a lot riding on this fight. We talk about Buckley, Usman, Ian Gary, Brady. But people are sleeping on Michael Morales. I do understand a little bit why he, doesn't speak English and he's a little bit farther down the pack. But dude, if he were to get like an impressive, especially stoppage victory over Gilbert Burns, I think you got to put him among those guys as well.
Who do you like? Danny, who do you like in this fight?
Tough pick, man. This is a tough one. I got to watch more footage. I say for now, Michael Morales, but I'm very hesitant about it because he's looked good, but we still haven't seen a ton from him, and he hasn't fought anybody like Burns, and Burns is always a professional. So I wouldn't be surprised if either guy wins here. I wouldn't be surprised if Burns kind of teaches him a lesson, kind of like the veteran puts him in his place. But man, I just got to go with the undefeated guy, the guy that's young. If history in MMA has taught us anything, is usually somebody in the position of Michael Morales here should get a win.
Goes, how about this fight, man? Coming up here back at the Apex, Gilbert Burns, who was supposed to fight, I think, in Montreal, in Miami. They kept postponing it. It's almost like this big setup for Michael Morales to look good. I mentioned Jack Della and Maddalena, but if you recall, Belal Muhammad's whole title thing started with a win over Gilbert Burns too.
Yeah, no, this will be a good fight. I think when you look at Gilbert Burns, right, and everything that he's had to go through in his career, it's a who's who, a hit list there. And despite being on this downward trajectory, he's still Gilbert Burns. And Michael Morales is a tough cat. I think if he gets a win here, he's going to keep moving on. There's no looking back. But if he were to get a finish over Gilbert Burns, I think that's taking one step closer to becoming one of these new stars that we're going to be talking about, that everybody's going to be able to talk about. And I'm with Danny. I wish just a little bit more English, and I think he would really, really break through, because we've interviewed him before in person and in Spanish, and he's actually very charismatic. If that could just transfer over a little bit, like look at Alex Pereira, right? He doesn't really speak English. Somehow he's able to do it, but just a little bit. I think that kid could be a star. It's going to be a fun match. But right now, I'm leaning towards Gilbert Burns.
Mm-hmm. All right. Mike Bond, the welterweight division. We keep saying it's popping. It's got so many options. Your thoughts here? Is Morales the truth?
We'll find out here. I mean, look at the only people to beat Gilbert Burns at welterweight in like the 8 years he's been there. It's Kamaru Usman, Hamzat Chimaev, Belal Muhammad, Jack Della, Maddalena, and Sean Brady. I mean, like, what more can you say? That's elite things. And we don't know if Michael Morales is there yet. It has been a bad year for undefeated fighters, though. We'll say that much. I think it's something like 27 undefeated fighters have lost their O in the UFC in 2025 already, which is pretty remarkable. Really? So let's keep that train going. I'm thinking maybe this is a bit too much too soon for Morales, and Burns, with his back against the wall, being this desperate, will use some of his veteran savvy to get a decision or a submission win here.
Mike, I'm staying with you. Give me another highlight to look for from UFC Fight Night 256 in Las Vegas, headlined by Gilbert Burns and Michael Morales.
I mean, I had to put on my binoculars to look hard for this because there's not much to work with here. But if you do take that very, very hard look, there's a few good fights on here. And I'll point at Julian Erosa. I think he's been on a nice run here. I think it's 3 straight first-round finishes for him. He's fighting Costa, who's the first to have 3 UFC fights this year. So he's got some momentum on his side as well. That's a pretty good fight at featherweight there. And I think the winner can maybe be like, give me someone top 15 or right outside of it.
Danny Segura, how about you, man? Put on the binoculars like Mike says. Have you found anything?
I actually like there's a fight here that I liked a lot, and I'm shocked that it's opening the entire card and it's at the very bottom of the prelims. Tisha Pennington versus Luana Pinheiro. I think it's going to be a nice little banger. I've always been a fan of Tisha. I think she's had probably one of the, along with Angela Hill, probably like some of the worst luck in MMA, just like keeps finding herself on the wrong side of like split decision losses. She's made it pretty clear that like she's going to make one more title run. She's got to win. And then I've always thought she was like very skilled. So I want to see what she's able to do here against Luana Pinheiro. And I think it's going to be a fun fight. And it could be a low key big fight for strawweight, depending on the result.
UFC Fight Night 256. Another highlight goes out at 2.
Look, if you guys watched Dana White looking for a fight, Mateus Camille was on that. He was the other guy. He was the guy that was kind of not supposed to be highlighted, but he ended up being highlighted. He's a Vegas local, and he's a tough cat, man. He gives a lot of people a lot of work in the gym. He's got Gabe Green. I think it's going to be an exciting fight. I think it'll be a lot of fun. So I got my eye on that one.
Good stuff, guys. All right, I'm going to go with Paul Craig. Why? Because, okay, he's back at light heavyweight. And for starters, I know he's coming off a few bad performances, but the guy at times has beaten some really good fighters, including a current champ, a former champ, some Hall of Famers. It's just a weird ride that this guy's had, but he just gets me interested because he gets into it, the painting the face, the accent. He's a threat, obviously, off his back. I wish he would evolve a little bit more and wrestle offensively and get on top, but still, he's just stood out, and that's all I ask for fighters to stand out, man, because it's 1 week after the next. We turn the page, and if you don't help me remember you, what are we doing here? And the UFC definitely needs those types of fighters. It might be too late for Paul Craig to really become one of those because he's suffered too many L's, but still, future fighters, take note. Do something that makes us remember you. All right, and you should remember...
GG, the only reason why you like his accent is because you haven't had to transcribe and write a story from his interviews.
Is it bad? Is it that bad?
It's very difficult.
It's pretty rough. But if he does get a submission win here, he will tie Glover Teixeira for the most submission victories in UFC light heavyweight history. So,
all right, guys. Great job. Remember, every Monday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, you can check out SBC Spinning Back Clique. We're here to unpack the biggest stories from the week. And if you can hit the like button on the way out, we'd greatly appreciate it. It kind of helps trigger the algorithm, help the show grow. And get into the comment section. Tell us what you agreed with, disagreed with. I'll be in there as well, checking to see what you guys are all about, what your guys' thoughts are. Give me some matchmaking when it comes to that welterweight/lightweight scenario that's been created by JDM and Makhachev and Topuria. It is madness. We discussed it earlier in the show. So if you caught us live and missed it, that was part of the meat potatoes of today's show. All right, we're out of here for now. Go out and be a champion. We'll see you next week.